Hello guys, Team Survival here, and today we'll be going over April counter fairies. So to start off, it's 3 Guiding Ariadne. This card's amazing. You don't pay costs, so like cards like Divine Punishment are free and you don't even need to have a card in your hand. Two, Minerva. This card's great for recycling. It gets up to really high attack because it gains 500 for each counter trap, so this, in a sense, almost becomes like a boss monster. 3 is a little bit too cloggy with him, and you really only need 2. Then 3, Bountiful Artemis. You get to draw every time you use a counter trap, so this helps just refresh hands and keep the deck going. A lot of people like to go all in on the Artemis. And then for the one-ofs, we play 1 Barrier, 1 Power Angel Valkyria, 1 Meltio, and then 1 Consecrated Light. So Consecrated can't be summoned by Ties of the Brethren, which is kind of bad, but this is a fairy that's a walking floodgate for all dark types, and I obviously side the other two, but I thought, hey, with all the dinosaurs and all the other decks that are playing dark in them, this card's actually really good against them. And so I was like, why not just play it instead of playing like 2 Barrier or something. And Barrier is also a walking floodgate, so this deck has 2 essentially the best floodgates in the game. And Meltio is the pop, and Valkyria is to get some back to your hand, because sometimes you'll just open up with like 4 set cards and 1 monster, and you're not able to get more monsters to win the duel. So Valkyria is just kind of an answer to that, especially when you can set yourself up with Ties of the Brethren. So that's it for the monsters. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 monsters. It doesn't seem like a lot, but for a counter fairy deck, that's actually a very high count. But we play such powerful traps that we can afford to. To go on to the spell cards, 3 of the Sanctum of Parshath, and then 1 of the Sanctuary in the Sky. I'm playing 4 in total because we are playing, I want to say, 2 Divine Punishment, and I did have it at 3 before, but I felt like I wasn't seeing it enough with these, and there's no worse feeling than card demising 2 dead cards in Divine Punishment without these. So just the 4 gives me that extra insurance that when I do get this Divine Punishment, it's not going to be dead. They're all Sanctuary in the Sky, and then the second effect of the Sanctum of Parshath does help us refresh our graveyard on top of the deck, and we'll go over a combo with that later, when you know, like, you can put what you need on top of the deck and then like Pot of Duality or like Card Demise, etc. To your hand. Next is 2 Ties of the Brethren. I was playing this at 3, and I find that a lot of times like it just conflicts with Card Demise, which is such a powerful card that this deck can utilize. And so like, I know the point of playing 3 is you want to see them in your hand first turn and just establish a strong board with some floodgates and monsters that like have good effects on their own. That's why you don't really go into the extra deck that much. But I just do not love this card. I think it's really good, and I will still see it sometimes in my first turn. So I felt like 2 was the right amount. Then 2 Pot of Desires. I think it's the best spell card in the game. 3 Pot of Duality. It's really good for this deck, especially because this deck doesn't special summon a lot, but also Ties does conflict with it, and that's another reason why I'm not a huge fan of Ties. And then 3 Card of Demise, which also has a lot of restrictions, and it really conflicts with Ties, but it's so good. Having 12 monsters almost is an issue with this, but I wasn't seeing enough monsters, so I'm like, you know what, we need to up that just a little bit more. And Demise in itself is one of the best cards in the game as well. It's definitely top 5. For the non-counter traps, we're going to jump into those first. We're playing 1 Mistake, and we side a second. This card is really good. You know, once you've already got your counter traps, you've got yourself set up in that first turn, and you mistake your opponent and they really can't play, it's pretty ridiculous. 1 Storming with 2 Torrentials. We have the Solemn Brigade, and we all know how good like Torrentialing and then Solemn Striking is. Same for Storming Mirror Force, and so that's why we're playing it. You could take out the torrentials, go more storming, etc. But I like 2 torrential, 1 storming. It just fits me more. Next, we have 3 Ultimate Providence. I think this is actually the best trap in the deck because of Guiding Ariadne. It's just free. You don't have to have anything in your hand. Like you just activate it and negate what you need. It's ridiculous. We don't play the Parshath counter trap card or the Parshath big monster. They're cloggy. They conflict with card demise. Like if something happens to the deck on the ban list, then like we'll revisit that. But I actually do not like them. I don't think they're very good. The whole point between that counter trap was you get a really big power swing when you use the trap, and like if you have Ariadne, you just have to reveal a card. But like if you don't have a card in your hand because you demise and it's a dead card anyways, and like it was just supposed to be a power swing because you get 28 body on the board and you negate something and whatnot, but it's just very inconsistent. Then we go to the Solemn Brigade. 1 warning, 1 Solemn Judgment, and then 3 strikes. This in some ways is the heart and soul of the deck because it's just such a consistently good engine to play into opponents. And then to finish it off is the 2 Divine Punishment, really good cards. They can be a little inconsistent as well, which is why we bumped it down to 2. That is it for the main deck. Next, we have the side deck before we go into the extra deck. So the side deck is 2 Consecrateds, and then 1 more barrier, because sometimes to be a Consecrated is as good, so you want to put in that second barrier just to have 2 Floodgates. And then Consecrated can just win matches by itself. Then you need the 1 Dark Hole, and the 1 Regeki, and 1 Storming, and the reason for these is your opponent's going to, after your first duel, your opponent's definitely going to choose to go first, and so you need cards that'll blow up boards that are going second cards. And so that's why you would side these in. Storming's not going second, it's going first. But Regeki and Dark Hole, you're not maining them. You want to side them in and then put them in because your opponent's going to be ready for that. So main decking Dark Hole and Regeki doesn't quite work as well because you need to establish that board first. You're going to be going first. Then the 1 Mistake followed by 2 Drastic Drop-Offs. Sometimes Mistake might be better. Maybe you feel that you'd rather have the counter traps just to get some more of your monster effects off. Then maybe 2 Drastic Drop-Offs and no Mistakes might be the way you want to go. I like having both. They're really good. This is counter trap, this is continuous, and just shuts down decks. Next, cards like Imperial Iron Wall, shut down Lightsworn, 6-card zombies, any of those Banishing Graveyard variants, some dinosaurs. Card's crazy good, and this deck doesn't really ever banish, so it doesn't conflict with you. And then 2 Gozen Match. This is one of the few decks that can utilize this card, and I think it's a really good floodgate, quote unquote. And then the last is 2 Chaos Trap Hole. Again, just to screw with those light and dark matchups. This is basically searchable with Ariadne, and when it gets destroyed, it's just the fact that you have access to just a counter trap card that's like banishes one of their light or dark monsters. Like obviously you wouldn't side this in with Imperial Iron Wall, but like this card is incredible. It's like almost main deckable, but there aren't enough light and dark decks that it would be worth it. Into the extra deck, just 1 Underclock Taker, that's your only link monster. You don't make a bunch of monsters in this deck. For the draw power, 1 Fairy Cheer Girl and 1 Bujenti Tsukiyomi. I don't find myself using this as much because you need to have a card in your hand. A lot of time card demise conflicts with that. But Fairy Cheer Girl, on the other hand, is just like really good for drawing, and 1900 isn't that bad, but I do go into Fairy Cheer Girl more than I do Tsukiyomi. Then the Utopia package, 1 Lightning, 1 Prime, and then 1 39. This card's really good, don't sleep on it. It can get you out of really bad situations, so I'm a really big fan of that card, and it helps you get Utopia's effect twice as well. So that's pretty crazy. 1 Baguska, 1 Giant Hand, and 1 Roach. These cards don't let your opponent play, kind of. Bagooska's super good and can stall out, and for a deck like this, it's one of the best extra deck monsters you can go and do. Sometimes you know exactly what you want to stop, and you don't want to stop maybe other effects on the field, so Giant Hand is one you want to go and do. And then Roach, nothing like it used to be years and years and years ago, but we've got so many box cards that we can afford to play something that's really only good against very singular matchups. Then we're playing one Stylish Polydynamo and one Cowboy. Guys, if you guys can't afford the Lightning, even though he got reprinted and he's really only like $15, Polydynamo is like $1. He essentially does the same thing. He negates their effect, and I believe he puts them to 0, and then you just attack over. So it's 2,000. It's 500 less probably than what the other would do. Maybe it'll do even more damage. But this is like the poor man's Utopia. I like it because you can negate their effect, and sometimes that might actually be better than Utopia. And then Cowboy, self-explanatory, because we have the space for him. He also has that attack effect. Everyone forgets about that. He's not just for burning 800. Then we have Tornado Dragon, Castel, 101, Diamond Dire. These cards are all kind of like removal. Tornado Dragon removes spell and trap cards. Castel can remove basically anything. This is if you have a play that you can make with Castel, but you want to be a little bit more safe and you want to be able to detach to destroy. This card could definitely come out for whatever you guys feel would be better. And then Diamond Dire, who also you don't really need since you have a Castel, who can get rid of a problematic card anyways. But since we have the space, we might as well play them in this version. That's it for the deck, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope that this gives you a good base on how you want to build the deck. You don't have to follow it exactly, but this is personally how I think the deck should be run. Thank you.